name is Lauren Colletti. I'm a nurse practitioner, certified through the Institute of Functional Medicine. I'm the clinical director here at Alive and Well. And I'm really excited. I do a lot of women's health. It's really a big passion of mine. So with that encompasses fertility, preconception. It's a lot of counseling that I do with my patients, and supporting them to have successful pregnancies and postpartum periods as well. So super excited to talk about this, and I'll let Elise kind of introduce herself as well.
Yeah, I'm Elise Clark. I'm a nurse practitioner, also Alive and Well be in Dallas when the building opens, which is very exciting. And I have an advanced certification for hormone replacement therapy. So women's health is a very big passion of mine, not just menopausally, but postpartum. I have an 18-month-old. Well, actually now he's 20 months old. I have to change my verbiage on that. He's getting too old. So I recently kind of went through all the preconception, preconception, pregnancy, postpartum stuff myself. And so that kind of reawakened a passion for that with me. So I have a little bit of personal experience recently, and then worked with a lot of my patients on just your basic functional things that we can do to help pregnancy be more likely.
So we're going to be talking about fertility, really common causes of infertility, and then just really the preconception period considerations to take into play. And then I want to spend a fair amount of time just talking about testing and kind of our personal approach to preconception and this sort of fertility time or season, as they call it. And then we'll talk about a little special considerations regarding that. This is Elise and I. And so let's talk about fertility. Fertility is really just a woman's ability to conceive. So we have a fertile window each month, usually between 5 to 6 days. The egg itself lasts for about 24 hours. So once we ovulate, we have about a 24-hour window to become pregnant. However, sperm can live anywhere from 5 to 6 days, up to that, I believe. And so there's definitely a window where if you're actually actively trying not to conceive, this is an important thing to track. When you're trying to conceive, clearly you want to engage in intercourse a certain frequency around leading up to and at ovulation. And so really fertility overall is on the decline. I know Elise and I can talk to, we see more and more women struggling with becoming pregnant, having multiple miscarriages. And so this is just something that it should be on our mind when we're thinking about fertility, is that really they're saying up to 13.4% of women suffer from infertility. And really about 12% are using infertility services. So going to see specialists to be evaluated. The definition of infertility is really just 1 year of trying to conceive with frequent intercourse and not becoming pregnant. And so really it does take two to tango. I think there's been more and more discussion about a male's role in fertility. I think in general for so long, it's kind of been a burden the woman's been placed, right? It's like something's wrong with you, why you're not getting pregnant. And really that's just not the case. Men can be solely responsible for up to 20% of cases of infertility, and others 30 to 40% of all infertility cases. So that's, 30 to 40%, that's almost 50%. So really the male needs to be involved in them getting a workup and being actively making changes in their health during this kind of preconception and fertility time. So what are some of the most common causes of fertility challenges? Really for women, a lot of it has to do around ovulation. So are you ovulating at all? Do you have disruption in ovulation? And so while if you have a perfect 28-day cycle, they say, oh, you ovulate between day 12 and 14, but for many women, there's variations in that, even within a normal 28-day cycle. So understanding if you are struggling to get pregnant with sort of the timing, understanding when you ovulate and if you're ovulating all is huge. Another, I think, second would be thyroid disorders, PCOS, which is where women have cysts or issues with their ovaries, and that can impact ovulation for sure. Endometriosis, different STDs can cause this, fibroids, which are actually very common in women, specifically cycling women, and then becomes even more common in perimenopausal and postmenopausal women. And so for men, most common causes typically are related to sperm count, sperm quality, Hormonal disruptions in men, so lower testosterone, can impact both sperm count, sperm quality. Then chronic stressors, toxins, things like that, that we'll talk about that impact both men and women, can definitely impact men as well. So preconception considerations. So when we're thinking about pregnancy, and again, this is within a perfect world. I have 3 children. I would say my first one was a surprise. I was living a fairly healthy life, but I did not have a 3 to 4 month preconception period. She's beautiful, thankful. So again, this isn't an ideal scenario. Life happens, but we really just want to inform you on things to consider and give yourself time prior to actually trying to conceive to have the most successful pregnancy and healthy baby. So toxic burden, nutrition, hormone balance, just your metabolic health, body composition is very important. Stress levels and just emotional considerations are something we really want to take into account. And so there's been a fair number of studies. I think the biggest one is kind of this Foresight study or Foresight group, where they actually created kind of a preconception protocol that really looked a lot at nutrition, lifestyle, different factors, health diagnoses. And really they found that really 59% of people reporting reproductive difficulties, having trouble trying to conceive, 1 in 5 miscarriages, previous miscarriages in the past. And so within this study of 367 couples, they were all put through preconception counseling. And with that, 204 couples with infertility problems, 175 of them actually achieved healthy pregnancy. So that's a pretty incredible look at why preconception and doing some preparation prior to pregnancy, either whether you've had difficulty trying to conceive or conception, it's really important to look at that preconception period and really take it seriously, because it really helps to improve outcomes. And so that's just really preconception care. It really offers not only an opportunity for a healthy baby, but it's also a great way to get healthy yourself and do preventative care prior to pregnancy. So the preconception period, really, we're looking at the maturation of the egg and the sperm, and typically that's about a 3 to 4 month window, right? So there's a life cycle of a maturation cycle of an egg when it becomes ready to be released and to be fertilized. And so that's about a 3-month window. So there's a lot that you can do to impact the quality of that egg being ready to be released, right? And so nutritional status, stress levels, environmental toxins, those are all so important to really look at and address during this period. So some essential nutrients for preconception. Many of us have heard about folate. Oftentimes folic acid was what talked about. That's a more synthetic form, but folate is an active form. B12, iron, zinc, many antioxidants, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, selenium, and omega-3s. Many of which we can get through a very clean, whole foods diet. Nutrition is very important. Nutrition, supporting blood sugar regulation, hydration. These are all just foundations to overall health and also just supportive of your hormonal health. But certainly during that preconception time, we really want to make a focus on eating clean, not shying away from fat, right? Fat is where we produce all of our hormones. So I always like to let women know cholesterol, we derive all of our steroid hormones from cholesterol. So that's really important that we're eating enough fat in our diet to support healthy hormone production, right? We do want to avoid as far as high mercury fish. So seafood is a wonderful source of omegas, but they can, unfortunately, more and more carry some of a heavy metal burden, which is not something that is healthy for women trying to become pregnant. So we want to avoid these large fish specifically. Alcohol. So this is always a bit of a touchy subject to talk about sometimes, but alcohol in general is a toxin. It is not helpful for hormonal issues. It's not helpful, certainly, for fertility. So this is a study done for people using IVF, so that's not going to be the average person trying to conceive. So take that into account. But it really, if you look at it, a women who drank just 3 drinks per week really reduced, only had a 30% chance of conceiving. Again, this is from a cohort that were already struggling to conceive. So I don't want to put fear, but I also just want to really nail the point that alcohol, when you're in the preconception and trying to conceive period, I really think should be abstained. Every now and then is okay, but in general, getting comfortable being off alcohol during that 3 to 4 month period is really important and clearly very helpful to pregnancy. Caffeine. Overall, from the research, overconsumption of caffeine, and that's something like 5 cups or more a day, which if you're one of my patients, we'll definitely be nailing improving that, because you should not need 5 cups of coffee to get through your day. So really, 1 cup of coffee, even in the preconception period, doesn't seem to impair fertility or increase miscarriages. You may discuss with your provider, if you are, working with someone, that abstaining from caffeine would be helpful, depending on what else is going on. But overall, caffeine in small amounts is not considered impairing fertility. So let's kind of move from the nutrition piece and kind of move environment. And this is something we really can't avoid at this point in the 2023, 2024. I mean, we live in a toxic world. There are so many, especially in the US, there are thousands and thousands of chemicals that are deemed safe in the US, but everywhere else in the world are considered dangerous. So it is a big period, especially when we're trying to conceive and we're looking at having the healthiest eggs. We want to be able to really take stock of what we're putting into our body, the air we're breathing, and so really avoiding hormone disrupting chemicals, BPAs, phthalates, synthetic fragrances. Oh gosh, sorry guys. Minimizing, minimizing your environment as much as you can to improve your indoor environment. So that's air filtration, taking shoes off before you come into doors, things to support detox pathways, make sure you're pooping every day, sweating, things, exercising, things like that can be really supportive. Men, just one caveat, if your guy is sauning really regularly, that is thought to be something that could impact like sperm quality and sperm count. So it is, men should, consider, especially if they do have a reduced sperm count or working on improving sperm quality, that they may avoid sauna for a period of time. Not putting your laptop on your lap, like EMF reduction, turning off your router at night can just kind of reduce your exposure as best we can. And so exercise is another big one. I tend to find that a lot of my patients over-exercise. So it's not so much about getting them to exercise, it's more having them have a healthier relationship with exercise. So focusing really on mobility, strength training, things that kind of support a healthy weight, but also support like a healthy nervous system, right? And so when we're over exercising, that can be stressful on our adrenals and stress hormones, which can actually down regulate our female hormones, which can impair ovulation. So again, it's on a really personalized approach. But really the exercises that I tend to have patients really focus on is weightlifting, and then doing yoga, staying active, walking, doing some less high intensity, longer endurance training is typically best. So to kind of move into the stress piece, we live in a stressful world. So stress is kind of, it's with us always, right? And so it has a pretty significant impact on our hormonal health, our metabolic health. It can be inflammatory. We oftentimes see high levels of cortisol, and that impacts insulin resistance, weight, struggle to lose weight. Yeah, it's a ride you want off of. Okay. And so these are a lot of just why do we want anxiety, insulin resistance, hair loss, inflammation. It can downregulate estrogen. It can very much impact progesterone levels, which is something we need to have in order to become pregnant and maintain a pregnancy. And so when we talk about kind of the cascade, right, we see, adrenal hormones, cortisol, aldosterone, DHEA, adrenaline, norepinephrine. Cortisol is kind of the one we hear of the most, and that's an important hormone. It's actually very helpful for fertility in appropriate amounts. So it helps support the ovaries. It is an anti-inflammatory. We kind of produce what we call a diurnal pattern throughout the day, meaning we tend to have the highest cortisol levels in the morning, and that's to wake us up. And throughout the day, it fluctuates where it's lowest at night to allow us to sleep. With sort of chronic stress, that low-grade stress that many of us have on a day-to-day basis, what that does is it tends to impact the curve in that we're producing high amounts of cortisol at differing parts of the day, which can affect anxiety, can affect sleep, and consistent over time. What that does is it actually downregulates luteinizing hormone from the ovaries, which helps to support ovulation, as well as it reduces progesterone. And progesterone is what is produced by the egg that second half of the cycle. And that is critical to maintaining pregnancy and to becoming pregnant. So what we tend to counsel patients with is that we really try to do different stress reduction, and stress management is very important. Because we really want to support healthy progesterone levels and healthy hormone levels, specifically at ovulation and on. So there's lots of different stress management techniques. I tend to really let patients know it's not about what, it's just about committing to typically bookending their day is what I like, where AM and PM practices, and they can be anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes to an hour. It really depends on the person. But it's real important for us to take that time to connect with our body, to check in, to take stock, to reflect, to have gratitude, to really help send signals to our body that we're safe, things are good, right? And that over time can really help support the adrenals. And then, of course, there's the lifestyle pieces that we've just talked about as well. Breathing is so important, and that's something we do regardless. So I'll just have patients try to take minutes when they're feeling stressed and just do a couple of breathing exercises. So there's box breathing, which is like a 4-4-4 pattern, right? We inhale for 4, we hold for 4, and we exhale for 4. There's also this 4-7-8 pattern. When we think about things to calm our nervous system down, it's really about a prolonged exhale. So you don't even have to really count. You can just take a deep breath in, hold for what feels comfortable, and then really prolong that exhale. If you do 3 to 5 of those, you will dramatically feel a difference in your body. Most of what it is us just taking the time and thinking about it, but really that will send signals throughout your system of safety. And if you are feeling anxious or tense, you will notice relaxation in your body. It might be fleeting, but it's at least something to remember, and it's really easy. You don't need anything to do this. So I like to really encourage patients to incorporate that. There are some fun tools that I like to use with patients, especially those that are really struggling with stress and sleep. Heart rate variability, many people have kind of heard of this term. Really what it's looking at the electrical conductivity in between heartbeats. And so it is really an assessment of the impact of stress on your body, right? Are you resilient to stress? Are you flexible when it comes to stress? Meaning you can be in a stressful sort of activated state and then your body can recover, right? Can get into that parasympathetic state. Can it do that pretty quickly? Or is it kind of stuck in a very stressful all the time, right? So we're not really able to get in and out of a stressful state. We're sort of in that chronic stress state. And so when we look at heart rate variability, there's things like the Aura Ring, which I have on. That's probably my most favorite tool. And right now they link with natural cycles. So if you're doing fertility, if you're actively trying to get pregnant, it checks basal body temperature. It's really pretty amazing what it does, but it gives you your HRV, and the lower the HRV, the more impact stress has on your body. And so it's an indicator of really kind of being in a chronic stress state. So it's helpful to use that as a tool to see where you're at baseline and what other interventions we can do. So it might be supplements, it might be changing the diet, it might be doing breathing exercises, getting into some a vagus nerve stimulation. So like Apollo Neuro is one that I love. It's a wearable device that can help stimulate that vagus nerve, which helps give you those really calming hormones and shift you more out of that chronic stress state. So I really talk about this a lot because this is huge, and everyone is impacted. And if you're trying to conceive, if you struggled to conceive, that is one of the most stressful periods in a woman's life. It can be all consuming. And so it's really important for us to remember that we're trying to support stress in our body as much as possible. Red light, getting in the sun, putting your bare feet on the ground. It sounds, it's free. And it's very impactful to not only the nervous system, but also mood, vitamin D levels. So I really don't want to brush over just free medicine that we have in our world every day. So when we talk about getting pregnant, you got to know your cycle. So we've talked a lot about interventions that you can do, things to watch, look at, and start practicing, start incorporating into your life in this preconception period. But we got to start tracking our cycle. Do you know about cervical mucus changes, that as you get closer to ovulate, that cervical mucus, that discharge changes, it becomes watery and egg white, and you kind of know that your body's preparing to get pregnant. And so a normal cycle can be, remember, 25 to 35 days. So really what I look at, are you having fairly regular, if you're having regular 35-day cycles, that's fine. If we kind of know when you ovulate, which we can use it through temperature checking, we can use it through ovulation sticks, right? That look at hormones that produce around ovulation. Knowing your fertile window is huge, because like I said before, what's one of the most common causes of infertility is ovulation. If you're trying to ovulate, if you're trying to, engage in intercourse, but you ovulate, at the wrong time, you may have a unique ovulation schedule. So this cannot be, I cannot stress this more. This is so important to know. And there's so many apps that you can use to help with that. So that is absolutely part of my approach, is making sure all my women, whether they're trying to conceive or not, are tracking their cycles, because it's so important for us to be aware of that. So to talk a little bit more about kind of my approach, really, it's very much about understanding your history, what got you to today. There's definitely different interventions, different testing that we will do based on your history and your personal history. Since we're talking generally, we're really making sure you're getting key nutrients, and we're testing specific markers to make sure your body is functioning optimally. We take into account lifestyle, age, genetics, if we have that, or we decide we want to do some genetic testing. Your demand for nutrients and minerals, and it's so much higher during this period. So we want to make sure we're supporting that through nutrition and high quality supplementation. So this is kind of a basic panel that it's not like everyone needs these basic labs, regardless of what your history is. And so these are labs that Elise and I check regularly on patients, whether they're conceiving or not. But this is a page that you want to make sure you screenshot or whatnot, because this absolutely needs to be checked if you want a thorough assessment. And so there's a bunch of other testing we do. There's some cool companies now that do, semen analysis that you can just do online. So it's less, you don't have to have a clinician. Modern Fertility is another one where you actually can check hormone levels on your own, right? You don't have to go through a clinician to just get an idea of where your fertility status is. I do caveat that because there are things like AMH, for instance, anti-Müllerian hormone, that looks at egg quality, and that can absolutely be improved. And typically within sort of the Western traditional, they'll say, oh, your AMH is low, you have a very poor chance of getting pregnant. And I know Elise can probably say that. That is totally not true. So that can be scary for someone doing a test and saying, oh my God, I can't get pregnant. My egg quality is bad. So I just caveat that if you do have a low AMH, it does not mean that you cannot get pregnant. So it means that you probably have a lot of environmental toxins, oxidative stress, things that we need to optimize in a functional medicine approach to improve that, because it absolutely can be improved. So these are some additional testing. I'm really getting into hair tissue mineral analysis and looking at mineral balancing and optimizing mineral levels. We do Nutri-Eval, which is a really great micronutrient test. It also gives us an idea of some other stressors that can be going on in your body. But these can all be used on an individual basis depending on what's going on. I oftentimes will do transvaginal look at ultrasounds to see, because I do find that many OB-GYNs, they really wait until there's issues or you've had multiple miscarriages or to actually do a full workup. And I would say from someone who's had multiple miscarriages, the last thing I want to say is, oh, we need to wait till you have 2 or 3 more before you'll qualify. It's like, no, that was traumatic enough. Like I want to do everything I can now to get worked up before I try again. And so special considerations, again, food, you just have to take supplementation. There's no way around it. Food density, food quality is just not what it was. And like I said, this is a very important time to replenish all of your nutrient stores. And that's where supplementation comes in 100%. Both partners need to be supplementing. Knowing MTHFR status, which is a genetic SNP that looks at how you absorb B12 and folate. So again, B12, folate are very important for pregnancy. So many times we will check this, or patients might already even know their MTHFR status. If they have compromise in that gene, we'll give them additional folate and B12 just to support that. So prenatal vitamins, I use a combination. I don't love synthetic iron. I tend to love women to get iron through food. So there are some prenatals that I use that do not have iron, but we just, again, I'm monitoring that pre-conception and during pregnancy. So we support with food-based sources if possible. If we can't, then we absolutely will use iron. I love Alpha Sperm. This is a newer product. It's actually like a male multi that's really geared towards the preconception window. So it has some amino acids, it has some antioxidants that help with sperm count and sperm motility. So I think that's a pretty great one for guys to get on. The Pure Genomics multi is a great one as well. The supplementation, it can be vast. I try to keep it focusing on antioxidants, focusing on the essential nutrients. But based on lab testing, we may adjust just depending on what we're working on. But, you know, vitamin D, omegas, again, these are pretty basic recommendations that I have. And so additional supplements, it can be more than this, but CoQ10, DHEA, NAC, glutathione, L-arginine, probiotics. CoQ10, there's been a good amount of research with egg quality, DHEA, improving egg quality. So depending on labs and depending on what's going on, we may put in higher doses of antioxidants to support. So pregnancy is not a period for detox, right? That is why preconception is so important. This is why we want to make sure that we're doing all the detox and heavy work before you get pregnant, right? And so again, pregnancy is not the time to start new protocols. That's where that window before is essential to reduce your toxic load, the toxic burden, which we all have, and to prepare for a period of nutrient replenishing and really growth. So some special considerations. A lot of my patients will be like, okay, I'm going to get off birth control and then we're going to just start trying to conceive. And I typically don't love that because birth control really can deplete B vitamins, zinc, many micronutrients, as well as it really alters the gut flora. So what I'll tend to have patients, if they are on birth control, I say, okay, well, let's get off. Let's make sure we're tracking our cycle using, methods to abstain from pregnancy while we get their cycle more regulated. If it doesn't come straight back after birth control, many women will have what we call post-birth control syndrome, where they just don't have periods. Some women will get pregnant right away. It's just individualized. But if I were to talk to someone, I would say, let's replenish and support your body 3 to 4 months after birth control before trying to conceive. PCOS, inositol, D-chiroinositol is wonderful to support ovulation and support glucose. So many times patients with PCOS have trouble with ovulation, or they have inconsistent ovulation windows. And so D-chiroinositol is wonderful to help regulate that. With endometriosis, a lot of it has to do with toxic burden, genetics, but I typically always make sure we have OB-GYN evaluation. We have ultrasounds if they need hysteroscopy, if we need to do some further evaluation. So I oftentimes will work with gynecologists with that. If you have a really short or really long day cycle, that's also something for us to consider, and to us really do more of that functional medicine approach workup to kind of look further and support, because you may not be consistently ovulating if you're having really short or really, really long cycles. So that is it. That was a lot. Sorry. But I really wanted to kind of give you guys a really good overview. Preconception is just such an important time. It's an important time to optimize health, to really increase nutritional status, but it's also a really important time to take that window to really strengthen your relationship as a couple, right? I think that we can get so focused on the end product, the baby, right? But having a time to really nourish your relationship and connect and grow stronger in your values, etc., during that period, because when you have the baby, there's a lot of stress and it does impact that relationship. So it's also a great time to just have fun as a couple. And also, if you've had a miscarriage, or you're just concerned about fertility, I really don't hesitate to reach out, get someone who will listen, get the appropriate testing. Here at Alive and Well, all of our clinicians are wonderful in supporting preconception and fertility. I just find so often so many women aren't really listened to, or they're dismissed, or like, oh, you don't need to worry about that. And if it's something that is bothering you, or you desire more information, you need to listen to that intuition and reach out to people that you know will support you. I wish I'd say every clinician is like that. You may not always encounter that, but just keep searching, because it's super important to listen and go with what your gut is telling you.